Today is Tuesday, December 13th. We're talking about a major breakthrough in nuclear fusion, what scientists are expected to announce today, and why it's such a big deal. Also, a former crypto billionaire now facing criminal charges, and where the worst of a huge, powerful winter storm is expected to hit today. Plus, what to know about the World Cup now that only 4 teams are left. Another Ticketmaster fiasco where the company says fake tickets were sold. And the Golden Globes promised more diversity, but do this year's nominees live up to those promises? Those stories and more news coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. What's already become a brutal winter storm is now in the middle of the country, set to bring days of heavy snow, blizzard conditions, and freezing rain. Right now, winter storm alerts stretch from the Canadian border to the Mexican border. But the Central Plains and Upper Midwest are getting hit the hardest. Some places are in for up to 2 feet of snow. With that could come power outages, tree damage, and dangerous travel conditions. As the South Dakota Department of Public Safety put it, quote, "This is a we are not kidding kind of storm." Meanwhile, people who live in southern states like Texas and Louisiana could get heavy rains, flash flooding, hail, and tornadoes today. Then the storm moves to the East Coast from New England to Florida by the end of the week. When all of this is over, it's expected to be colder than usual for this time of year in almost all of the United States. And it's expected to stay that way through Christmas. The man at the center of the largest cryptocurrency bankruptcy has been arrested. Sam Bankman-Fried, who is sometimes referred to as SBF, is the founder and former CEO of the crypto trading firm FTX. It went bankrupt under his leadership, wiping out billions of dollars. Federal prosecutors in New York filed criminal charges against him, and police in the Bahamas have now arrested him. And more details will come out when a sealed indictment is expected to become unsealed this morning. The next step is likely for Bankman-Fried to be extradited back to the U.S. As the New York Times reports, he faces a number of serious charges like wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering, just to name a few. The collapse of FTX hurt a lot of people financially. The company was valued at $32 billion before it all fell apart, and some have accused the crypto platform of operating like a digital Ponzi scheme. U.S. government officials have been trying to get answers out of Bankman-Fried for weeks. He was actually scheduled to testify remotely today to the House Financial Services Committee about the failure of FTX. Now that's scrapped. But the newly appointed CEO, tasked with sorting out what's left at the company, is still expected to testify. If convicted, SBF could face life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was one of the largest migrant caravans to ever cross into West Texas. More than 1,500 people stepped across the Rio Grande and into El Paso on Sunday, followed by at least another 600 yesterday. And they joined thousands of others who have come in through that part of the border in recent days. So many border facilities are over capacity and overwhelmed. With that, a lot of the people who cross are just being released and told to come back to immigration court when it's time for their hearings. But because shelters don't have any beds available, many of them are staying on the streets. As the New York Times points out, this could be a preview of the challenges officials all along the border are about to face since Title 42 is set to come to an end next week. Remember, Title 42 is the policy that's been letting border officials deport most undocumented adults right away without giving them a legal hearing. It's been in place ever since the early days of the pandemic out of concerns migration could spread COVID-19 even more. But it's not going to be there for much longer, since a federal judge has said the policy must end by December 21st. It's estimated nearly 50,000 more people are waiting until then to cross into the U.S. from Mexico. The Biden administration says it's preparing for the surge. A breakthrough in energy production could soon change the way humanity powers the world. Today, the U.S. Energy Department is set to announce that scientists have finally succeeded in harnessing energy from nuclear fusion instead of fossil fuels. This is something scientists have been chasing since the 1950s. Nuclear fusion is often seen as humanity's best source for clean, cheap, limitless energy. So what is it exactly? Well, we already have nuclear power plants, but those use a process called nuclear fission. That's the process of splitting atoms apart and slowly breaking down elements. Fission also creates deadly radiation and waste that needs to be carefully managed. On the flip side, nuclear fusion creates new elements by combining atoms together, and it does not create that toxic, long-lasting nuclear waste. It's also good for the climate because it doesn't pump pollution into the air like gas and coal power plants do. On top of all of that, fusion could someday bring cheap electricity to the poorest countries around the world. Granted, it's likely we're still years away from the first nuclear fusion power plant running the lights and appliances in your home. But today, we are expected to at least get one step closer. More news still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. I've had to find more doctors lately since I was pregnant, and then once I had my son, he needed a pediatrician, and when our insurance changed, my dentist was no longer in network, so I needed a new one. And let's be honest, it can be hard to find the right doctor for our own specific needs, personalities, and schedules. Oh, and of course, insurance. And yet, it's a really important decision. Well, I always at least check out ZocDoc as part of my research process. ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. Go to ZocDoc.com, check out doctors that could be right for you, and if it looks like a great fit, book an appointment in person or remotely that works for your schedule right on the app. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. It's time for the semifinals at the 2022 FIFA World Cup. In other words, it's down to the final four teams, two soccer powerhouses, Argentina and France, against two underdogs, Morocco and Croatia. Today, it's Argentina versus Croatia. A lot of people are rooting for Argentina because of Lionel Messi, who's considered one of the best soccer players in the world, but he's never actually won a World Cup. And this is expected to be his last chance. But there's also a huge show of support for Croatia. Tomorrow, it's defending World Cup champions France against another team that's been considered a long shot, Morocco. They are the first African team to reach a World Cup semifinal. In the end, the winners of these semifinal matches will face off for the final this weekend. Well, the changes at Twitter keep on coming since Elon Musk took over. The social media company just dissolved its Trust and Safety Council. That was a special advisory group of around 100 independent organizations, including human and civil rights specialists. The council was scheduled to meet with Twitter representatives last night, but members said they got an email telling them the council was officially disbanded right before their meeting was supposed to start. Twitter formed the Trust and Safety Council in 2016. It was meant to handle a variety of serious issues, including child exploitation, hate speech, and suicide prevention on the platform. Some say the council's removal is another example of Musk rolling back efforts that were meant to make Twitter a safer, more civil place. Others say Musk is simply opening up the social site to everyone's opinions and free speech. An email to council members said Twitter was, quote, reevaluating how best to bring external insights, and said the council was just not the best structure to do this. Twitter and Musk have not said what new safety measures they plan to take yet. To be continued. Ticketmaster is in trouble again, this time because hundreds of fans of the Puerto Rican rapper and singer Bad Bunny were not allowed into his concert in Mexico City, despite having tickets. It's because Ticketmaster says an unprecedented number of people were sold fake tickets to the concert, and because of overcrowding inside the stadium, along with a lot of confusion, Ticketmaster says a good number of people with legitimate tickets were kept out of the show by mistake. The details beyond that aren't really clear. But Mexican authorities are saying there were no fake tickets. They're accusing Ticketmaster of overselling the event and trying to brush it off as a fake ticket problem. Either way, the Mexico City show was Bad Bunny's last performance of his tour before a break, so fans are furious. Mexico's Consumer Protection Agency said it's already received 1,600 complaints. So it's forcing Ticketmaster to reimburse fans who bought tickets and pay them an extra 20% of the ticket's price. Ticketmaster will also be hit with a fine that could cost 10% of its earnings in 2021. This is just the latest fiasco Ticketmaster is dealing with after a chaotic rollout of tickets for Taylor Swift's upcoming tour. Remember, it led to a lawsuit and several state investigations. Well, the company sent an email to some fans yesterday who had tried to buy tickets during the pre-sale but weren't able to, saying they now have another chance to buy 2 tickets each within a certain time frame. Ticketmaster blamed extreme demand for crashing its website last month, preventing potentially millions of fans from getting access to tickets. Swift's new tour begins in March. The nominations for the 80th annual Golden Globes are out, and they're getting a lot of attention since this is the first time the organization behind the award show put out noms since getting a big overhaul. After a diversity scandal last year, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association added 6 Black members, up from 0. With that and other reforms like a stricter code of conduct, NBC agreed to air the award show once again after canceling the telecast last award show season. But Variety points out that even though there are more Black voting members, the Best Picture nominees don't include any movies with strong Black themes, actors, or behind-the-scenes talent. Instead, some of the top nominees include The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Avatar: The Way of Water, Top Gun: Maverick, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. The Golden Globes are set for a Tuesday next month. Stand-up comedian Jared Carmichael will host. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, this podcast is sponsored by Rocket Money. I've definitely taken advantage of free or discounted trials on apps like Spotify, thinking I was going to cancel before I'm charged full price, and then life gets busy and I forget. And then months go by sometimes, and I've wasted money. And I'm not alone. Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, when, according to Rocket Money, the actual total is closer to over $200. For you, maybe it's a Hulu account that never gets streamed after the 30-day trial, right? Well, there's a great app that can help track all of your expenses, and because of that, help you avoid wasting money on subscriptions that never get used. You might have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Rocket Money can find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. Get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/newsworthy. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/newsworthy. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, where was the Salvation Army's Christmas collection kettle first introduced? You can answer the question and play along with us on Instagram. Just find and follow us at NewsworthyPod and look for the trivia quiz in our Instagram stories today. As for last week's trivia question, which Beatles single was #1 on the Billboard charts for the longest stretch of time? The answer is Hey Jude. The Beatles are arguably one of the most famous bands of all time, and Hey Jude was one of the biggest chart-topping hits of them all. When the Beatles released it in 1968, it immediately rocketed up to #1 and stayed there for 9 straight weeks. That was a record that would not be broken for nearly a decade. Paul McCartney is quoted as saying he wrote the song for John Lennon's son, Julian, who was 5 when his parents got divorced. Apparently, the original song title was Hey Jules. It's all about putting a spin on a sad situation and encouraging Jude to take his chances at finding love. The Beatles' #1 radio hit has gone on to sell around 8 million copies since. All right, thank you so much for joining us and listening today. We'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.